So good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's an honor and pleasure to have you all for a panel discussion on role of law schools in community development. It's organized by Center for Community Development through Law, New Law College. For the event, we have distinguished group of panelists with extraordinary expertise and unprecedented vision. They have been bringing innovations in legal education and transforming the future of law schools and legal education. They are the ones who have taken legal education to new horizons. And for that, we have with us Professor Ajay Pandey, Professor and Executive Director for Clinical Programs, OP Jindal Global University, Sonipat, Advocate Pravartak Pathak, Practicing Advocate, Supreme Court of India, New Delhi, Dr. B.S. Patil, Associate Professor, V.M. Salgaonkar College of Law, Goa, and Dr. Saurav Anand, Head, Department of Social Science, NLU, Gandhinagar. Before I proceed with my opening remarks, may I invite Dr. Ujjwala Bendale, Dean and Principal in Charge, New Law College, for welcome address and brief the audience about the college. Madam, over to you.
Thank you, Madam. Good morning, everyone. I, on behalf of Bharati Vidyapeeth deemed to be university authorities and New Law College, Pune, welcome Professor Ajay Pandey, sir, Professor and Executive Director, Clinical Programs, OP Jindal Global University, Sonipat, Advocate Pravartak Pathak, Advocate Supreme Court of India, New Delhi, Dr. Babu Bohram Patel, Associate Professor, V.N. Salgaonkar College of Law, Goa, Dr. Saurav Anand, Head, Department of Social Sciences and Assistant Professor of Sociology, NLU, Gandhinagar, to this panel discussion on role of law schools in community development, a roadmap for future, organized by Center for Community Development through Law, abbreviated as CCDL, and coordinated by Professor Ujjwala Sakharkar and Dr. Anisa Sheikh, Madam. I am here to formally introduce you to Bharati Vidyapeeth and New Law College, Pune. The Bharati Vidyapeeth deemed to be university has established academic excellence and offers programs in innovative and emerging areas. Presently, Bharati Vidyapeeth has 29 constituent institutions, including 3 research institutes. Bharati Vidyapeeth is a multi-campus and multidisciplinary and is catering to the needs of urban and rural students. It has world-class infrastructure, innovative academic programs, best teaching learning processes, and has entered into national as well as international collaborations. All this has been possible only because of Honorable Dr. Patangrao Kadam Saheb, the founder of Bharati Vidyapeeth, deemed to be university, a visionary who, at the age of 20 years, decided to establish Bharati Vidyapeeth as a distinct educational institution. Today, Dr. Patangrao Kadam Saheb is the guiding star for whole of Bharati Vidyapeeth fraternity. The second dynamic patron of Bharati Vidyapeeth is Professor Dr. Shivajirao Kadam sir, Chancellor Bharati Vidyapeeth deemed to be university, member UGC from 2005 to 2011, member NAC 2012 onwards, and recently, on 6th of May 2021, Sir is awarded with Excellent Contribution to Education Sector Award by CMAI, ICT Association of India, and Electronics World Communications Award 2021. Our guiding patron is Honorable Dr. Vishwajit Kadam sir, Pro Vice Chancellor Bharati Vidyapeeth, member AICTE, and Honorable State Minister for Social Justice and Special Assistance Department. Sir is an excellent visionary like Sahib and is stepping on the path of success and very positively is carrying forward the torch of Bharati Vidyapeeth to more greater heights. Supporting Dr. Vishwajit Kadam sir is Professor Dr. Manikrao Salunke sir, the Vice Chancellor of Bharati Vidyapeeth deemed to be university, who is a disciplinary and a brilliant administrator. Today, under the excellent guidance of our beloved patrons, New Law College Bharati Vidyapeeth has been consistently ranked amongst top 10 law institutes of India by Career 360, The Week, Lawyers Collective, India Today, Education Post, and Outlook. New Law College has been accredited with A+ grade by NAC and has also received Gold Star Award from Bar Council of India on the eve of its Golden Jubilee celebrations. A few best practices we follow at our institute are international collaborations, social justice through free legal aid, continuous legal education, and clinical legal education. And to upkeep with our academic excellence today, today's panel discussion is organized, aiming towards creating a forum for learning from each other's experiences and benefit the students' community and the participants. Once again, I welcome all the dignitaries and express my gratitude towards all you dignitaries for consenting for today's panel discussion. Thank you so much. Over to you, Sakarka Madam.
Thank you very much, ma'am. We all join you in welcoming our guest. And may I now request Dr. Anisa Sheikh to kindly brief the audience with information on CCDL.
Thank you, ma'am. The activities of New Law College reflect the commitment of the institution for access to justice, a ground reality for those who have been marginalized for long. With this view, New Law College took an initiative and established Center for Community Development Through Law, CCDL. The Center for Community Development Through Law is a new endeavor for community development. We believe in providing professionally desired and socially relevant legal education. To further our mission, social transformation through dynamic education, we are committed to work towards empowering different sections of society using law as an instrument of social change. Our faculty and students of academic programs like BA LLB, BBA LLB, LLB 3 years, LLM will focus on successful community development team building. Through our roles as coordinators, conveners, researchers, community development staff, ultimately seeks to promote community development in the communities to ensure fair and impartial access to justice in underserved society and to assist society in understanding their responsibilities. We work towards achieving a strong and healthy community. Community development seeks to empower individuals and group of people with the skills they need to effect the change within their communities. These skills are often created through the formation of social groups working for common agenda. Community developers must understand how to work with the individuals and also how to affect communities' positions within the context of larger social institutions. Community development approaches are recognized internationally. These methods and approaches have been acknowledged as significant for local, social, economic, cultural, environmental, and political development by international organizations. Keeping in this view, CCDL has constructed its vision, such as CCDL strives for justice through an inclusive society to uphold the dignity of human being. Our vision is to promote awareness of rights and duties and to render social justice. We strive for a community where people can grow with self-dignity in harmony. We aim at creating a democratic society where people are free from exploitation, oppression, and gender discrimination. CCDL works with particular mission, such as the center is committed to the furtherance of access to justice and protection of human rights through law, directing its skills in the area of community justice and development towards understanding and attempted solution of local community problems. It acts as a bridge between institution and society by effectively communicating legal awareness to the community. CCDL support communities to enhance their well-being and enable them to create social, economic, and environmental conditions in which they can build future for themselves, especially for poor, needy women, senior citizens, and students. With this mission and vision, CCDL has designed its objective as to provide legal awareness and counseling to the various sections of society, to undertake research projects, to identify and analyze various conflict issues in the community and provide legal solutions for the same. CCDL aims to provide a platform to the scholars and experts to exchange ideas and adapt best practices for community development, and to provide training to the community and identifying community leaders. Purpose of the center is to organize workshop, seminars, and panel discussion to draw expertise and learn from the experience. So let's explore, experience, and engage in this panel discussion. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am, for briefing the audience about the vision, mission, and objectives of CCDL. Let me begin with some opening remarks. We all desire for society based on rule of law, where access to justice, equality, liberty, fraternity, development are not hollow words, but benchmark for the development of the society. Today, we are living in uncertainty. What is only certain is uncertainty, change, challenges, and fear. This year have definitely posed several challenges for education and educators. We have to rewind, rebuild, restructure the education system and plug in the critical gap. We have to find out in this unique situation the possible solution to create opportunities. We must have a clear sight of our necessity, and for this, we need to bring people from different fields, experts, and vibrant vision to share and learn from each other. Today's community is complex, and law and legal education has to deal with these complexities. Today, the buzzwords in education are global, dynamic, and competitive. Law students have to learn law in social context, living law. Law is considered to be instrument of social change and social engineering. In many communities, and definitely law and legal education impact the community in a meaningful way. With these few words, let me put a very, very general question to all the panelists. And the question is, what is community development all about? And why is it important for young minds to participate in community development program and course, the role of law school in development of the community? Over to you, Ajay Pandey.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you very much for inviting me to this discussion. I would first want to really congratulate the new law college for this initiative, for this webinar, as well as the CCDL, the Center for Community Development Through Law. I think it's a very important idea, and I'll straight away come to the question. What is community development, and how law students can be engaged, and how law schools and how people associated with law can be engaged in community development? I think it's a very fundamental question, and I'm happy that this happens to be the first question. Although, of course, I was not oriented towards this question. I have different other things to talk, but certainly this question is extremely important. What is community development? I think when I look back my own work in communities, and I pose this question to myself as to what is community development, what I would say, and what I keep saying to my students in the law school is that law necessarily has to be pursued on behalf of millions of people who would never really know what law is. But at the same time, we as people associated with law, we as people teaching law, doing law, lawyers, judges, students, teachers, etc., we know that it is extremely critical for communities and for masses to be a part of law, to be in law. If they are not in law, if law is devoid of people, then law is never going to succeed. And therefore, law students and lawyers and judges, they necessarily have a fundamental duty to ensure that in their work, in their pursuit of law, communities and masses have to be there. If they are not there, if their concerns are not addressed, if the language, structures, mechanisms, etc. of law are not inclusive of masses, if they, if all of these put together, they keep making these spaces and these spheres and language, etc. of law exclusive of masses, then it is not community development. Community development through law would certainly mean that when we pursue law, we have millions of people on our shoulders, sitting on our shoulders, and we should be able to carry all of these people through our journey, through our pursuit of law. This, according to me, is community development. One would want to call it community empowerment also, because when we engage with communities, when through law especially, one major goal or one major objective could be to empower communities. But I refrain from using that term empowerment or empower communities. And why I refrain from doing it is because through my work, I have realized that we cannot empower communities. We can and we must, and this is what we should be doing, is to initiate a process whereby the community, the citizens, realize their own power, because that power is with them. That power is not with us. The power is in masses. If we talk of rule of law, Ujjwala, that's the term that you have mentioned, rule of law. And all of these jargons and big terms, if they are not to remain as hollow terms, then we have to understand that we have to go to the power. We are not the power. Power is in the people. It is with people. People are sovereign. Sovereignty rests with the people of India, and we have to look at the first few words in the preamble to the Constitution of India, that is, we the people. So according to me, it is to go back to people, to be with them, hold their hand and tell them that in 75 years we could not do enough, but here is CCDL. We want to do enough. We want to do things that would ensure rule of law, that would ensure that we have a vibrant and responsive democracy. We have our institutions which can respond to the needs of people, and we should be building our communities and our individual citizens as institutions of democracy. So I'll stop at this. I think this is my preliminary remark on the question that you have posed, and I'll be happy to take more questions. And
thank you, Professor Ajay. I think you have made a very distinguished point here, where you said that if law is devoid of people, then law is not going to be successful. And secondly, you also said that we need to initiate the process where we make the community aware of their power rather than using the word empowerment. So we make them realize their power, and they are the kings, actually. Moving on to the second speaker, may I invite Advocate Pravartak Pathak to share his views. Advocate Pravartak Pathak, am I audible to you?
Sir,
Yes.
you need to unmute, sir.
Am I audible to you?
Yes.
Yes, great. First of all, congratulate to the management for taking these efforts, and I feel extremely happy that the institution like Bharati Vidyapeeth is taking efforts to connect this entire legal education system with the societal development. I'll just take a words from Mr. Pandey sir, that he said that we cannot empower the society or we cannot empower the community. Yes, it's absolutely true. In fact, we are supposed to learn from the community. And that is the most important aspect which I feel that every law student, every law school must strive and make it sure that the value in the society, the values in the community should be infused, should be transmitted in all the students for the better citizens, for the better lawyers, for the better judiciary, and overall for the better community. Being a lawyer, I always feel that I'm privileged. I'm privileged because of I belong to such a profession who actually created the modern history of this wonderful country. Straight away from national movement to even the today's various concerns, we lawyers always are negotiating various various conflicting interests within the community. And therefore, if a law student who is going to be a leader in the society, who is going to be a judge in the society, has to learn or has to understand what the society is. The problem is still means nowadays the practice which I have seen in or the approach of several advocates while practicing in courts. We have a very positivistic understanding of law, and we absolutely forget that hard and fuller debate that law is not merely a positivistic understanding, but it also governed by the principles of natural law and justice. And I feel that to understand natural law and justice, one need to understand what is the idea, what is the object, and how it is going to benefit to the entire society. I'll just share some example that when I passed out, when I graduated, and I started a practice, I got very some different views and approaches from my relatives, from my friend circle. When I said that yes, I'm going to be an advocate or I'm starting a practice, some people say what kind of profession are you into? Or when I little bit succeeded in my profession, and uh, after that, when I approached the bank for a loan, then bank said that I'm sorry, you're a lawyer, we can't give you loan. But when I interacted with the various foreigners, they were like, oh, you're belong to such a noble profession. So the most important aspect according to me is that if you want to be every law student as a nobleman, then there should be efforts and every law school to strive to connect the every law student with various sects, various parts of the society who are having conflicting interests and who actually contribute to this wonderful democracy and its overall development of the democracy. Then only I feel that we will be able to maintain the idea of rule of law. Over to you, madam.
Thank you so much. I totally agree with you, Advocate Pathak. You say that value education is to be transmitted to the students, and it's the responsibility of the law school. And there are so many conflicting interests which are existing in society. And the role of a lawyer and the role of law school in community development is to know these conflicting interests, analyze them, and try to balance these conflicting interests. May I request now Dr. B.S. Patil to respond to the question and express his opinion. Over to you, Professor Patil.
Thank you, Ujjwala ma'am. Thank you very much. Now there are two questions which are raised here. What is community development and whether young minds should be involved in working towards community development. Now when it comes to first question, I'm going to answer it in two parts, because when you look into a definition of community development from educational institution point of view, we can, as an educational institution, develop the community in one standard method, which is expected by the society by contributing. Now, what we contribute to the society? Take the example of IITs. IIT contributed Sundar Pichai, it contributed Nadella, contributed Zuckerberg. So what has done is they created a generation who can innovate. That's one way of contributing to the society, and that's why the institutions are built. And that is the purpose of having all these institutions. But when you look into the idea of the CCTL, which the New Law College is very proud of, if you look at the Legal Aid Society, which my college runs from last 25 years, when you look at that, we are actually making a certain divergence from the general objective. Now there I come to the second point. When you look into community development from educational point of view, as Advocate Pathak was mentioning about the image of the lawyers. Now, who has to be blamed for that image? Profession, maybe, but we cannot sit back and say that we are not responsible for that image. Somewhere we also need to contribute for improving the image of the profession. And same way, we also suffer from image because I am a professor of law. My brother is advocate. And when we go to our village, nobody takes advice from me because they consider to be master ko kya pata hai. So they always go to my brother to take that advice. Even we suffer from the image, Mr. Pathak, it's not only you. So when you look into this building of the image, the community development, involving in a community development is the best way to do it, because when there is an interaction of society with the student or with the educational institution, they get more and more appreciative of the situation. Otherwise, for a child, the family is the society. They look at the family and they think that everybody is well off. Everyone is having 2-day meals, because that's how the things work. My friend was whole of his childhood thought that people eat once a day. He was so poor that they used to have one meal a day. And he thought that the whole world eats once a day. Till he got a job for himself and then realized that no, it's not the way. We were poor, that's why we are eating for once a day. But that's a simple example where the exposure is required. So there were a few excellent narration was made by Ma'am Ujwala of law in social context. Now, once you bring that social context into the life of a student, definitely the image of the profession is going to change. So therefore, I suggest that young mind should be involved in community development, not to develop community, but to develop themselves to become better professionals. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor. I think a very important point and a change in perception has been made by him, where he says that the student should look into the community development to develop himself, and we all are jointly responsible for sharing the image of lawyers and law schools, and we need to take initiative to change that. Now I move on to Dr. Saurav Anand. Can you please give your opening remarks?
And thank you so much, first of all, to the organizer to provide this platform to speak with all of you through this virtual medium. Because first of all, I should accept this reality that I am the odd one amongst all of you, because I am not from the law background. So for me, a person who is from sociology, but teaching the law school since almost 14 or 15 years almost for me. So for me, involvement of myself as a sociologist, as a student of sociology, working with the legal aid committee since beginning in the law school is the experience I can share with all of you. Because for me, I am the odd one which I can say that how the laws are working in practice and what is in the books, law in books and law in action. So we go from that perspective. So when we are working in the concept of the law looks so I can say, broad, so having power, so having the role of the change maker. When we talk about it in the terms of Roscoe Pond, law is a tool of social engineering, just now being told over here by Professor Pandey, Professor Patel. They always brought those aspects in the aspect of what is the contribution of law. So law as a tool of social engineering, when we talk about it, it is creating a change in society. That the purpose of law is there. So many laws, so many rules have been created to bring a change which is necessary to make more better society. So when you talk about the law as a kind of tool to govern to all of us, as a sociologist myself, I have always believed that before the execution of law in formal sense, there is also a kind of informal way of controlling and regulating behavior. So that is also very much important. And because why I'm saying such, because if both things are go hand in hand, then the success of the law can always be there. Just take the instance of the Dowry Prohibition Act. When you talk about Dowry Prohibition Act over here, this particular evil is in practice since long time and still is in practice. Despite we have the law, but somewhere we have not got rid of the dowry as a part of our social custom. Despite, because these are something which we have to realize. We have another kind of concept for all of us to understand. The constitution makers, Baba Sahib Ambedkar, when he was the chairperson of the drafting committee, he made ensure that there should not be any kind of discrimination to take place. And the remark which he has given in the parliament at that time when the discussion was happening, that we are moving in such a place, such a time, that we are going to achieve the legal equality in the terms of law, but there is always a bound to have the social inequality going to exist. Because in social inequality, he was reflecting about the kind of practices which are there in society. So in that context, when you talk about the youth and the understanding of law, so that is how I believe that law has many more things to do. And in that capacity, as a person, when I see over here, that I don't say that everything is negative. There are so many positive things also going to take place, and this is happening. Like in the existing curriculum only, I will just put in that, because we are not here to create new things always, to create that this thing is old, this thing is not in a function, so we should create a new one. But that new one is not going to serve the purpose. Can we empower the existing structure? Like, for example, most of us will agree on this point, that we have the concept of clinical legal education as a part of the curriculum in our law school. But everyone knows how the clinical legal education is being taught in the law schools, in the law students. For example, I can tell about my law students only, from my law school only, from where I belong to, because they have become a kind of understanding that somewhere it is just for the purpose of lip reading, lip service. So this is how that the concept in, I can say, the Carnage education reform, which has been made in 1908 in that time. It was being told that the legal education need to work in line with the medical and the technical education. It was mentioned that time. Until that day, today we are in 2021, still that kind of gap is existing over there. We talk about that law has to be professional. We understand lawyers have a higher role to play. The judges are the hope of our justice for all of us. But in that case, we also need to understand whether they are concerned with the social realities, how the society is there, what kind of social problems are we facing, what is the kind of mandate we have been given over there. So this is my understanding that they need to do and relook on the aspect what is there at this moment. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Saurabh. I think you have made a very important point where we have to study law and teach law from the perspective of society. I think the point you were stressing on was the internalization of the law. Unless people internalize the law, I think the law is not going to be successful, or law cannot be implemented properly. And the Dowry Prohibition Act and Sati Abolition Act is a very good example. Though Sati is now not in practice, but we still see people taking and giving dowry. Another point, important point, what we have mentioned is to study law with other disciplines like medicine and technology. I think these are two very important points which you have mentioned, and it's not out of place that we have invited you, but it's like we needed a sociological aspect of law, and that's why the invitation was for you. Thank you so much. Again, my question to Dr. Saurabh Anand, to you only. So as you mentioned that the sociological school considers law as a social phenomenon and examine law in relation to society. The main function of law, I believe, is to fulfill the needs of the society. Social requirements are accomplished by law. What is the point of interaction between law and social development according to you? Dr. Saurabh Anand.
Thank you so much, ma'am. And when we talk about law and social development, because the concept of development is to make it more better, I can say, space for all of us, that the word development is all about. And what is the role of law into that? Like in that capacity, because law can be a catalyst, law can be a change maker, law can bring lots of new opportunities in which the development can enhance. Because development, when you talk about it in any aspect, maybe talk about whichever area of development, for example, take the best example in front of us about the inclusion of the education as a part of the fundamental rights. So when you talk about having the new kind of understanding of having Article 21A, Right to Education Act, because before that, we considered that this was a part of DPSP. So we considered it is to be given, but again, when we made the education as a part of the human entity, as a part of human existence, it has to be there. Now the duty lies to all of us. So no one can take away that this cannot be provided. And that is how the different kind of policies program, like for example, in different states, just to promote the education among the girls, because this is another kind of the harsh reality that there is a gender gap in the literacy also, in the education also. But how the lawmakers and the policy makers, they are bringing a change through law, that like in case of Gujarat, just I will put about in Gujarat over here, till the education of till graduation, the education of girl child in any government institution is free of cost. So these are some kind of initiatives. Similarly, in Punjab, if I'm not wrong, till PhD, they have made it possible that for the girl child, they can go till the highest education. So these are what I'm trying to convey over here. These are the different kind of policies being made up by the government to promote a change and to promote a development in the society. Because we have to accept that this harsh reality, that education was always being considered from the gender perspective. कि लड़की पढ़ना लिखना सीख ली, that at least she can read and write, that is enough for her education. That was the kind of mental status which we are carrying a long time. And again, this kind of mental status still in prevailing in some of the parts of India. In some of parts of family, still people have the strong notion that why we need to promote education among the girl. We make it, that is enough for us. But now when we are looking in the 21st century, when we are giving the weightage that the girls cannot be compared inferior in any manner with the male counterparts, that is how the things are changing. Like for example, the current government, when they make the, especially just take an example for all of you to inform all of you, sir and ma'am, about the permanent commission in the armed forces. It's very strong at that time, which was never being accepted, that women can also be considered for the permanent commission. She can go for a particular duration of 14 years of job in defense forces, and then she can go for retirement. That is how the things were there. But again, the current government, they again make a change in that. We cannot say that the woman cannot take the role of a leader. I can say before, I can say Rajnath Singh in the previous, I can say government of 2014 to 19, at that time, the defense minister was a female only, Nirmala Sitharaman ji. So again, in that way, these are some kind of portfolio which were never been considered for female. So, but again, these are things changing over here. The woman can be part of any such thing which is only possible through the process of law. And that is how the development we're looking in the overall aspect. Similarly, you talk about the new kind of entrepreneurship development. Again, government is focusing on that also. Like these are different kind of policies, legal, I can say laws are being made up in that way to provide the financial assistance for making the woman more empowered. So that is how the development we are looking in the larger perspective with the bringing of law in interaction with the society. Over to ma'am.
Thank you. I think a very important point what you have mentioned here is when the student works in the community, he has to be aware of the various government policies and how government is taking steps towards the development of the community. And they also have to be aware of the cross-cultural values, and particularly they have to be sensitive towards gender discrimination. I think these are the important points what you have mentioned and very, very relevant for a student to work with the community. My question to you, Mr. Professor B.S. Patil, 21st century has posed new challenges in the area of education. How do you think law school can handle these challenges and still remain community centered, and particularly in this pandemic time?
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ujjwala ma'am. See, the challenge with the 21st century is that nothing is for sure. See, in the ancient time, now say if you take the 16th century, 17th century, father knew that his son is going to be an agriculturist. So he knew what to teach him. He knew how to train him to be a good agriculturist. But today, a father doesn't know what his son is going to be, because the technology is developing so fast. The society is changing so fast. The people are going out of job very fast. Now take the example of a doctor. Now, with artificial intelligence coming into picture and robotic operations are in picture, surgeons and doctors are in tremendous stress. They have to find a way out, because when there was a study done between, they gave a list of tests to the 6 doctors, leading doctors all over the world, and one artificial intelligence robot was also given the same tests. The artificial intelligence findings were such that 4 of the doctors were not heard of that disease, because artificial intelligence runs through thousands of articles written on those tests and come up with a diagnosis. Now, same thing is going to happen for lawyers also. Now, lawyers, we will not be able to run through the thousands of judgments, but AI can do it, and it can come up with a solution. So therefore, in this 21st century, the task that we should look at is teaching soft skills. So we should stop giving information, because information is available everywhere. We cannot stand in the classroom and deliver a lecture that in that case it was held so and so. If he wants, he can Google it and find out and read it. Then why you should stand there and teach? So what you should teach is adaptability. What is to be taught is the soft skills that he can learn in the society, not in the classroom. So therefore, the interaction between society and the institution, the educational institution, is much more required now. For a science class or for a science institution, there is a laboratory. And for law, society is a laboratory. So until unless we enter our lab and start experimenting there, start learning in the lab, we are not going to do justice to legal education. So in the 21st century, soft skill, adaptability, and then not losing heart, because if our job is taken away by artificial intelligence, we run back to educational institution, learn new skill, and come back to the market, the job market. So it's going to be a cyclic movement. Learn, earn, and again go back and learn, and again come to earn. That's my take on 21st century challenge. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I think a very important point what you have made is legal education can not restrict itself just to imparting information, but it has to go beyond that. And there has to be definitely an interaction between the law schools and the community. Taking the same thought forward, I have a question for Professor Ajay. And the question is how to blend core knowledge of law and skill building in law students to equip them for resolving social dispute. And still, we do not deviate from the syllabus which is prescribed by the universities. And how to build community development within the objective of an educational institution. Ajay, was I audible to you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you for this question.
So on one hand, we have prescribed syllabus. We are struggling with the prescribed syllabus. On the other hand, as Patil sir has said, we have to move forward from just imparting the information. We have to go away from that and give something more. So how do we blend these two?
Yeah, I think Professor Patil's point is quite relevant. In this age of information is available everywhere. What we need really is what to do with that information and how to appreciate that information, how to ensure that that information is used and put to its proper use. I think that is what we really need to work on. That's really an extremely important point. Also, so I think as law educators, we have to keep this in mind, that information anyways is available. What information we would be providing in a lecture of 40, 50 minutes or an hour, more than that information is available, easily accessible on the internet, and with multiple diverse resources, etc. So I think our focus has to be on what are the challenges despite those pieces of information that are available. We still face multiple challenges. In fact, as I keep saying, that there is a complete disconnect between some of the most fundamental, if we are only to talk about the fundamental promises of law to everyone, if only that, I would say that there is a complete disconnect between those promises and their reality. Now you want to actually come back to the question of community development, as to what is community development and how with all the courses and their limitations, etc., law schools and law faculty and students can engage in the area of community development. Now that I think there's a proper linkages. There are proper linkages between the question of information that is available and what is it that we need to do with that information, and the challenges that we see around. So this huge challenge of the disconnect between the promises of law and their grassroots reality. There's a complete disconnect, right? This is the challenge before us. Now, when we look at this challenge, as law teachers, we may feel that when we talk of the most fundamental provision of law in India, that is the right to a dignified life to every citizen, that is the promise, that is the guarantee. Our feet tend to tremble while talking about this fundamental provision, because we know that perhaps this provision of law, which happens to be the most fundamental provision of law in India, is meaningless, is kind of a fiction. It is not a provision of law because it exists in fiction. And then that would also put a question towards us, people associated with law. Are we into some kind of fiction, or are we into law? Are we some kind of fictitious people? Are people associated with law sitting in law schools, law colleges, pursuing law in different other capacities, fictitious people? Because we talk of equal access to justice, we talk of equality, we talk of liberty, we talk of the most fundamental provision of law, that is the right to a dignified life. And let me remind all of us that this is not just a fundamental provision of law, or the fundamental provision of law. We have to look at that kind of the status for this particular provision. It is not just that. It is a promise that we the people made to we the people. So it is much more sacrosanct. So every teacher, everyone associated with law. Now this promise is written in law. So we decided, we made this promise. It is my promise to Mr. Pathak, Mr. Pathak's promise to me. It's everyone, it's our promise. And if there is a breach anywhere of this promise, we have to be concerned, right? Now, as teachers of law, we have to address this concern within our limited resources. That is what Professor Ujjwala has been pointing out, that within the limitations of law school, within the limitations of those curriculum, I think every subject, practically every subject, has possibilities of clinical legal education. This term has been mentioned. And I think to the extent that there is a need of community development, every subject must provide modules for community development within that, within the sphere of that subject. So whether it's criminal law, civil law, consumer protection, whatever is that piece of law, I think those possibilities should be there. And those experiments must be made. Now, to encourage students, what we would really need to do is to come up with real situations, real scenarios, real people, real problems, and engage our students in those problems. While we are teaching law, while we are teaching a piece of criminal law, a provision of criminal law, come up with a problem which is real, and problems are everywhere. No, we see, although education is all about light, but we see darkness-ridden corners right in the vicinity of our endeavors of education. Right there, law education must be about justice, but we see injustices living right in the vicinity of our law schools. So therefore, we can always pick up those injustices and we can question them. We need to engage all our subjects in responding to those needs, those challenges, etc. And I think this would lead to a greater sense in the professional sphere of responsiveness towards community. Once community is empowered, community empowerment. When I am using this term empowerment, I'm using it in the sense that which I mentioned in the beginning itself. So when community has that realization that they are the owners of the system, they own the system, they have to participate effectively. And I think that entire arena of community participation must come in your community development endeavor itself, because they need to participate. Citizens need to participate. If democracy has to function, if democracy has to be vibrant, citizens must participate, and they must participate effectively. Not just participation, not just any participation would work, but that participation has to be effective as well. And I must say here that in order for a citizen's participation to be effective, it has to be based on values. These days, we see so many citizens, leaders participating in our public spaces, public affairs. But do they really participate, keeping in view that we are dealing with this problem of huge ethical deficit, problem of corruption, problem of bribery? Nothing moves without bribe, right? We are in our law schools, in our curriculum, in our lectures, in our writings, etc. We write good words, we write good research, but we know that the reality is quite different. Things just don't happen. There are provisions, there are resources. We garner resources, etc., to ensure that those provisions of law that we have made, they are effectively implemented. But implementation of laws, provisions of law remains a serious challenge. And we always say that this is perhaps because of governance deficit. We do not have effective governance. There is governance deficit. There is ethical deficit. So questions of when we are talking in terms of skills for law students, we should also be looking at values for law students. And these values are really important. Law students have to, lawyers have to, people associated with law have to strive for justice. and that has to be their main objective. And if that cannot be ensured by law schools, if law schools cannot really endeavor towards that goal, then what would happen is that law would certainly become meaningless. Most of the things that we teach in our law curriculum, in our law schools, they are meaningless. Human rights are unreal. They don't seem to be real. We can talk of good provisions of human rights, Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and all of this framework of human rights, but are they real? So how to make human rights real as we teach them in law school is a matter of community development. Communities need to be engaged by law schools in a way that law schools endeavor to make human rights real for everyone. I'll stop here now.
Thank you, Professor Pandey, for making a very important point where you speak about the effective community participation and democracy has to be vibrant, and the importance of value education. My question is now to Advocate Pravartak Pathak, continuing with the view of Professor Ajay Pandey, where he emphasizes on value education. I would ask you a further question. What do you think as a practicing lawyer? How is the ethical education important in law colleges? And how do we make students sensitive towards the social issues and towards the conflicts which exist in society, and resolve this conflict? Because after all, we are training them to resolve conflicts in the society.
Yes, madam. There are two parts in your question. The first is about the ethical education, and the second part is about the sensitization, right?
Yes.
Yes, the sensitization of the law students to contribute in a society. So the first aspect is concerned ethical education. I believe that, as I said earlier, that every lawyer, he may enter into a law practice, he may take up teaching profession, he be entered into politics, be a leader of the society, or be a legislator. Ultimately, what matters is that what values he is taking from his entire education, and more particularly his legal education, and what he learned, whatever the ethics values he has learned, that will reflect in his all endeavors in the society. If I'm good with my ethics, definitely I'll follow ethical legal practice. If I'm not good, or I have not followed that what are the ethical practices, then obviously it will put me in a difficult situation, including the action by the Bar Council of India. So I believe, yes, that ethical education is the most important and primary concern of every law school. Now let's come to the second aspect about the sensitization. As rightly said that by the earlier participant speakers, that that every law student must be aware what are the cultural ethos, what is the government policy. We should know that that every law student should have their soft skills. Then there should be adaptability and participation. I'll just share some of the experience. Fortunately, today is Ashadi Ekadashi, one of the important event in India, that is the Pandharpur Ekadashi Wari. Now, when we understand the concept of equality, we read it in bare words in Constitution, and sometimes our understanding of equality always is sitting in an ivory towers. No, that everyone should be equal and every person should be treated as equal. But when you go into the Wari and when you experience the interaction of each and every individual in that community, this interaction actually tells you that how the equality works, how the people interact without the problem of caste, gender, creed, caste, everything. So this is how there we learn what is the equality. Recently, I had one experience. We group of lawyers visited in a tribal area. In that tribal area, there is one act, Forest Rights Act, and certain rights has been created those who are residing in forest for the tribal as well as non-tribals. Now, those who are non-tribals, they have to take advantage of this Forest Right Act. They need to produce certain documents for the last 75 years. Now, just imagine there are people who are completely uneducated, residing in a forest area. How can they think that how they'll document and how they succeed to take benefit of their rights? So I feel that until and unless you go there, you cannot help out them. If you're expecting as a lawyer or even as a politician or as a legislator that those people will come to you and tell you that, sir, this is the problem and you please sort it out. You can't sort it out until and unless you experience it. So I think that this sensitization only comes when you give that experience, and this is the most important aspect for the every law school in a community development, to go beyond classrooms, to go there in the community, to participate, to understand. In one of the interview, Mr. Senior Advocate Harish Sarwar said that his formula of success is that he stays with the problem for a longer time. Even if we want to succeed in this society, in this community, we need to understand the problems of the society and we need to stay with these problems for at least for a certain period. So we got sensitized, and when we passed out from a law school, we can definitely contribute for the better society. And even as a law schools, law colleges, through their legal aid, legal clinics, with the practical experience, with the practical sensitization, they can definitely contribute in this for the betterment of this concept of rule of law. Over to you, madam.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing your experiences and posting a very important points. I think this question I'll pose to all of you one by one. You can respond on your own. Well, I feel collaborations, partnership, networking is important for law school. How do we really develop this culture of collaboration, partnership, and networking in law schools in India? And personally, I believe that sharing and learning from each other is very important. So how do we develop this kind of culture? I mean, this is a little tricky, and keep your political views aside, and I'm just asking your personal opinion that how do we really collaborate with each other? How do we develop partnership? How do we develop network in terms of research, in terms of activities, in terms of programs, in terms of project taking? How do we develop this culture of networking, collaboration, and partnership? Dr. Saurabh, you may start.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for this question. Again, I would like to add 2 points before I take up this question, ma'am. And just to inform, because I was listening to Professor Pandey and dear friend Mr. Pathak also about how the feeling of the oneness, togetherness, community feeling need to be inculcated among the law student to make a change, to bring a change. Just to inform to all my August gathering over here, it is a kind of proud for me that at GNLU we are offering a program known as BSW LLB program, Bachelor of Social Work with Law. So it is one of the unique program in the Pan India where we ensure that our students should have a chance to have the fieldwork practicum also, along with the regular courses, whatever they do. Like they till the moment we don't step out, because the purpose is that in the law school what we have inculcated, that there is an internship program, internship opportunity just after the end of the semester for 1 month, 2 months, and then again they come back to the class. So this kind of internship opportunity is only provided with a particular reasons, like for example, High Court, Supreme Court, District Court, law firm, company. This is how the internship department has been working. But till the moment you don't interact with the common man, which I was talking with, listening to Professor Pandey, till you don't talk with the common man, you don't realize the understanding and the concept of empathy. Till you don't understand the empathetic feeling within the lawyers, the judges, how you can expect that they will bring a change? Till the moment I don't understand that there is a kind of caste discrimination I'm facing myself, because our students mostly they come from very elite background. They never face those kind of traumas. Because they have the access to all the avenues. Those who do not have the access, they are always sitting in somewhere in suburbs, not access to the education, not going any opportunity. So there's a huge gap is existing. So this is how we have inculcated, to bridge that gap, narrow that gap through having that kind of field practicum as a part of the syllabus. So every semester they make a point to visit in that. Second, also just before I make a point, like I always believe that if you take up just a kind of matrimonial dispute, small example for you, ma'am, in front of all of you, most of the matrimonial disputes is on the ego. Like someone has not treated me properly, someone has not been addressed me properly, and that small thing pile up in such a big things that it becomes the dispute and kind of breakdown of the family. But again, in that case, the concept of counseling, because these kind of techniques which are being taught at later stage, when you become a proficient lawyer, like Mr. Pathak is over here, who is an advocate, when he becomes proficient, he understands what is the point of conflict over there. It is not that you are fighting for something. It is somewhat that settling the settlement of the egos of each other. So that is how the counseling, these kind of techniques need to be inculcated among the law student, which need to be the time of this hour. Because this particular, I will take, ma'am, your statement only. This is a time of uncertainty. We don't know the next step, what is going to happen. So in this uncertainty, you need to inculcate new kind of thinkings and pedagogy in the course curriculum, how to make up sure. So this is how we are trying to develop in that. Second point I will tell to all of you, ma'am, we have the concept of pro bono. And pro bono is 100 hours pro bono, in which every year, each student need to develop 20 hours outside their internship hours with the community work. Like in that case, one of my students, just now he is going to do his MPhil program at Cambridge. Because of his pro bono activities, whatever he carried out in his 5 law schools, that has made him to one of the successful candidate to get the admission over there. Like he is associated with the Saral Kanun, he is associated with the program like teaching the prisoners about the basic human rights in the Sabarmati Central Jail. So these are different kind of programs which he has carried out through pro bono. And that is how we are making at JNLU, how the students should make a point that we need such kind of law students. We need such kind of men and women who can work for the society at large. Another student, just to explain to all, Neep Sheikh is working with the Assam government. He's working with the social welfare, but he's again a student of DSWLV program. So he's now working in the reality about how to bring a change, how he can develop his learning in the real sense. So these things I have to take before all of you, before taking a question, ma'am. About the networking, first of all, we have to accept that, first of all, as a teacher, as a faculty, we don't want to share our knowledge. First of all, that's the thing. We consider it is our copyright. कि मुझे जो आता है, that is confined to me only. मुझे किसी को नहीं देना. Like for example, if you want to discuss, they will say अच्छा कुछ पढ़ लो, देख लो, इसमें से ऐसा कुछ होता है. But when you talk about how to come together, why we are not ranking at a larger level, because we don't want to get rid of our myopic mindset. Because sharing is more learning. That first thing we have to accept this thing. The more you share, the more you learn. The more I'll come to know about what's your new kind of area of research. You will guide me in that way, because this is the new thing you can look from this perspective also. Till the time we don't come across with that kind of the shell, we'll never come across. Just to point out here, we have set up the LSC annual forum when I was at the faculty convener of Legal Service Committee. So we started the Legal Service Committee annual forum of interlinking. Like all the law schools, wherever the law schools, they have the legal ed clinic. They should come over there, come over here at JNLU. They should share the experiences, what kind of best practices they are doing. Like for example, we had the Faculty Law Center of Delhi University. We had the Punjab University. We had, I can say, ILI Pune. They came over there, Salgaonkar Law College. They came over there just to share the experiences. Because this, the moment you share experiences, you know about the different do's and don'ts. You don't do this thing, you do this thing. This is the way you should look at across. Till the moment we don't share, that's the first thing in the kind of communication we need to develop to share each other. And this kind of platform, which you can say, ma'am, you can take the lead, under your guidance, we can move ahead, that we can have such kind of more people, where the people of similar mindset can come together and can work for the larger cause. It's not the cause for Saurabh over here to publish a paper, to place a paper, but for the how to make the academic more engaging, to have more learning with each other. So this is my take for with all of you. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you. Over to you, Pravartak Pathak.
Madam,
How would you say that we collaborate, networking, development, and things like that?
yes. For the collaboration, I think even when I was studying law in Pune, in those days, no one taught me about the ethics in research methodology. Unfortunately, I learned all those ethics when I completed my law, and particularly at the time of pursuing my LLM. I have seen various interns nowadays. They are very keen about the ethics in a research methodology. I believe from the first year itself, if we taught the ethics in a research methodology, then there won't be any difficulty in knowledge sharing. Ultimately, if we share knowledge with each other, then only we can develop the thoughts and we can contribute something. This is one. Secondly, I have seen a rat race between the interns, especially in law students nowadays, to do internship just for the sake of developing their CV. I feel that the purpose or whole object of internship is not to develop a CV, but to take a first-hand experience. If a law student is going to be a lawyer or even into judiciary, of course, he is going to learn on his own. And this is the profession as a lawyer that we learn at the cost of someone else, most of the time at the cost of clients. So ultimately, you're going to learn out of it. So what is important, that internships are not only in courts, but internships with the various NGOs who are working with a different segments in a society, like the child rights or maybe a tribal rights or any other fundamental rights. So I think this is the one aspect that I believe that if we develop this habit of internship in various segments in the society instead of in corporate or in litigation, so that will help. And so I think for networking, let's continue inviting the honorable participant like this, that all the participants and this such kind of seminars, this will definitely helpful for networking and to contribute or to develop a better thoughts, how to find out a way ahead. Over to you, madam.
Okay, Professor Ajay Pandey, would you like to respond?
I think, okay, I think
It was on the point of collaboration and networking and funding.
These aspects are extremely important. One of the experiments which we did some 10, 12 years back was to approach different law schools in India together with an NGO and see if there could be possibilities of the two collaborating and working together. And this is extremely important for a couple of reasons. One is that law students have their different priorities during the semester. So the beginning of semester, they would be more enthusiastic about community service, community work, engaging with people, working on issues, etc. They have their examinations. There would be complete silence from their part as far as responding, the need to respond to the community is concerned. So, and we cannot help it. And when they would have their holidays, they would be not there in the law school. So that connection with the communities would break. And we don't want that, because once that connection is broken, even for a few weeks, then communities lose their motivation. See, it's very important. If communities lose their motivation, you have your new set of students next semester. They would come, they would again with the same enthusiasm approach the communities, but communities would not have that same enthusiasm again, because they would wait for those promises which were made by the students to the community. And they would wait for those promises to be fulfilled, right? They would wait for responses. And so what we have experienced also is that there can be community fatigue if different sets of students approach the communities with the same kind of questions, with the same kind of information. That today we are going to talk about right to information. Another set of students next semester goes to the community. Today we are going to talk about right to information. Again, after a gap of few weeks, when communities would be needing the support of law students and the law school, there would be no support coming from anywhere. So I think a collaboration with a local NGO, which is also interested, which has a common interest, and if the two can come together, or any entity for that matter, which can ensure that community presence of the effort or of the initiative that is undertaken by the law school is sustained, is continuous. And we should, when we are talking of collaboration, funding, etc., it is extremely important that we also have our methods in place. So methods of first we should have an idea as to what are the problems. Is there a baseline survey? Is there a baseline study that has been carried out? Are there goals that are set by the initiative? What are those goals? How we are approaching those goals? Are there end term or end line surveys? Are there midterm surveys? Are larger sections of society involved in this entire initiative, in this entire endeavor? So it's a huge task actually. It's a huge responsibility. Cannot be done alone. You would need collaborators, you would need funders, but all of that would happen when there would be systems in place. What are those clear objectives that need to be achieved? How you're going to sustain the initiative when there would be complete lull at the point of the law school, because you have examinations, you have holidays, you have work pressure, etc. So you need partners who would fill when you have that lull. And I think that's really critical. And I've been working with communities, and I know that communities would otherwise, they would have this absolute sense of resignation, and we will feel that they are resigned. They are anyway resigned. You approach communities, you talk to them of rule of law and good governance and access to justice. They are resigned. They're resigned people. They know we are living in a status of fait accompli. This is my fate. I have to live like this. Nothing can change. Nothing will happen. 75 years on, nothing has happened. They're all talks. So this has to be taken through a method and through a passionate approach that we want change. And when that approach is taken by the law school, by the initiative, by the people who designed that initiative, with that kind of conviction that we are here not for learning, not for just your learning. Your learning is important, certainly, because you come to learn. But for that learning to be real, we have to also experience that change in the community. Because if that change doesn't come in the community, then it is only your objective that is being fulfilled or that is being responded to by the law school. Your objective of learning, you want to learn some skills, you want to receive some degree, you want to receive some information, and with all of those good letters of recommendation, you seek then admission your LLM programs outside India with all of that. So that is not, communities also realize that it was your objective, your goal. That's why you came to be, right? You are studying, you are in that endeavor. But what is my benefit? So how to ensure that benefit? How to ensure, and in their benefit actually is our benefit also, because this is what we want. That's the larger purpose. That's the larger goal of law itself. That's justice in all its form. Now, I think to all of this objectives and all of these goals, collaboration is an important element. When I was working with NALSA, the National Legal Services Authority, we actually came up with a scheme for DLSAs, District Legal Services Authorities across India, and law schools to find ways to collaborate. And in that scheme, we have listed those ways also as to how to collaborate, what needs to be done. Unfortunately, that policy could not be adopted. This was to be adopted last year, but as we were going to do that, we were hit by the pandemic. So that, and we could not actually carry out that exercise ever since then. But of course, those ideas are there. Those ideas have been communicated to various stakeholders. So collaboration with NGOs, collaboration with DLSAs in a meaningful way, not just to, for some dignitaries to make speeches before the communities as legal literacy programs. They are mostly useless programs. If dignitaries are given flowers and they are welcomed and they make speeches in a community by way of legal literacy programs, they are not really significantly helpful to the community. What we really need is a sustained effort whereby community actually learns a provision of law in a way that our students want to learn. Students must be able to not just learn, but also do it. Learning by doing. So this is learning by doing for our students, and this is learning by doing for the community as well. The community is benefited. They know the right information. They can also use the right information because they have used it. If they have not used it, then they would say that, yes, they have some information. And that is the cycle of empowerment. Cycle of empowerment gets completed when the person who is in it doesn't only know the information or have the information, but also exactly knows how to use that information because that person has already used that information. So it's like changing the tire of a car. You may know it or learn it through theory, but then when it comes to practice, if you have not done it, probably you will be shaky. You will not feel empowered enough. So the sense of empowerment comes when you have done it. And I think we need collaborators because students would not be able to respond to all of these needs of communities all the time. And that's really important. And also the aspect of funding, that is extremely important. I think Salgaonkar is a brilliant example of as far as funding resources for clinical activities and clinical programs and community outreach, etc. is concerned. They have built it as a part of their fee structure. And this is brilliant. So they charge a certain fee from the student towards this end. They collect money, they spend that money. So they necessarily don't have to really look at funding partners, because funding partners, of course, one can galvanize and mobilize funders. But what would happen? What may happen actually? It may happen that funders would have their own agenda. You have your agenda, funder would have another agenda, and you never know how to deal with the two differing objectives. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Ajay. You have mentioned a very important point of sustained effort by the center and learning outcomes for the students as well as for the community. Moving on, can I have response from Dr. B.S. Patil?
Yeah, thank you. I'll quickly go through my response. What I'm seeing today is that getting people from different fields, how we get more and more information and we enrich ourselves. There is one question asked that how we should collaborate, and we have got 3 different answers. Mr. Pathak gave from internship point of view, Ajay Pandey has gone from the point of view of legal aid. So therefore, see, that's the beauty of people from different fields. I completely agree with Professor Ajay that people say that we are our legal aid society at Salgaonkar Law College is 25 years old. But I know, being part of our legal aid society, we have started and restarted our legal aid cells, our legal aid society 25 times. That gap which Professor Ajay was mentioning, it's a real problem for legal aid work. And how to plug that gap is to having a collaboration with the local NGO who can run the show till the students are back on the field. Now, what we have done here is we have done a collaboration with panchayats. So we have a registry, Salgaonkar Law College registry is there in every panchayat in Goa, where if a person comes, and the students are having an education break or a study break, then they will enter their names, phone numbers, and the purpose of the visit, and then it will be taken up. So therefore, the gap is built, but not in a desired manner. Still, there is a gap to be built up. Now, when it comes to collaboration, I just may take 2 minutes of yours, where I say that how to collaborate is a wrong question to be asked. The correct question to be asked is why we need to collaborate, as Professor Ajay was mentioning.
Yeah.
Why we need collaboration. Once the objectives are clear in our mind, and how, that's not a question at all. We will find a way. So then the question here is, when the institution is running, again, I'm quoting from Professor Ajay, that students come with a different objectives. They have many things to achieve in life. And as a college, we need to provide an opportunity for every aspect of student. Some want to serve the society, some want to join criminal practice, some want to join commercial practice, some wants to practice at Supreme Court, some want a trial practice. Now we need to cater to everyone's need. So therefore, we need to have collaboration for all aspects. So once we clearly think about why this collaboration needs to be done with the DLSAs, NALSAs, and SALSAs, once that is clear, then we can always go and have a collaboration because we know why we are doing it. So that's why we need collaboration would be a right question to ask. Thank you.
Thank you. With this, I conclude the session, and we continue with the discussion and we take forward all your points. On behalf of Bharati Vidyapeeth deemed to be University, New Law College, Pune, I thank all the panelists for gracing the occasion. Your experience, insights, new ideas, thoughts have definitely shaped the discourse in a very meaningful way. We are grateful to you for sharing your time with us, and we deeply appreciate your presence. Thank you, participants. And in conclusion, I would say, discover yourself and help discovering people themselves. Thank you, one and all. Have a great day ahead. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thanks.